Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to South Sound Civic Center. My name is Kyle Broadhurst, and I'm the President of the Chamber of Commerce. I will be presenting the questions to the candidates this evening. Tonight's Candidates Forums is another educational initiative in which we aim to inform voters about the positions of the various candidates on issues of district and national importance. These forums have been held since the 1980s, and they allow voters to meet their candidates and to learn more about their opinions and views on some of the key issues being discussed and debated in the run-up to the election on the 24th of May. This year, the one-person, one-vote system has been introduced with 19 electoral districts. Tonight's forum is the 9th of the 19 candidate forums the Chamber is holding. It is more important than ever that the voters meet their candidates with only one vote. Voters should become aware of their candidates' positions on the issues to ensure that each one of us is making an informed decision. Tonight, Georgetown South candidates will be answering questions which we have developed from submissions from our Chamber members and the wider community. Mr. Will Pinot, Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber, will be tonight's moderator. He will explain the rules of the forum and then will introduce this evening's candidates.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen and candidates. The rules for tonight's forum are as follows. Each candidate will be asked a series of questions prepared by Chamber members and the general public. You'll have 2 minutes to respond to each question if you wish to do so. One ring indicates that you have 30 seconds remaining in your response time. 2 rings means that your 2 minutes has expired. Each candidate will be allowed to answer the question without interruption and is free to differ with an opinion or position of a fellow candidate. The seating on stage this evening was done by draw, so it was fair, so that everyone had a chance. The way it will work is Mr. Broadhurst will ask the first question to the first candidate, and then the second question to the second candidate, and so on. We ask that each of the candidates deal solely with the issues, and at the conclusion of question time, where each of you will be allowed a 2-minute closing statement. And again, I wish all of the candidates luck in this forum. Catherine Tyson is a former civil servant and community leader with 16 years of experience developing and implementing community initiatives. Her professional career has spanned 2 decades, during which time she has focused on management, consulting, teaching, and training, working alongside schools, children, and families. Most recently, Ms. Tyson served as the Deputy Managing Director of the Cayman Reporter. Ms. Tyson is seeking election as an independent candidate for Georgetown. Good luck, candidates, and I'll turn it over to Chamber President Kyle Broadhurst.
I'd like to start by welcoming all the candidates. Ms. Tyson, explain why you've decided to run for election in 2017, and why should Georgetown South voters support you as their candidate of choice?
Good evening, and thank you all for coming out to hear what we have to say. And, you know, I wish my opponents the best of luck tonight. This is an interesting seat to be in. It's a natural thing for me to run for elections, to stand in this election. I've been involved in community service for the last 20-plus years of my life as a social worker, and working with families and children and just different areas of social work. And it just seemed the natural fit. I'm from the Georgetown South area. I grew up right on Walker's Road, and this was my stomping ground. And a lot of the things that occurred in my life that shaped me for who I am occurred right on these streets. And because I'm able to see from a different sides, I've been a vulnerable person. I was born to a single mother. She was a teenage mother. By the time she was 19, she had the 3 of us. And I was raised by the community, by my grandmother and the community, and I was able to, through education and tenacity and focus and everything else, get myself in a position in my life that I can be proud of, academically as well as socially. And I feel that the ability to see the different sides and work with people in different aspects, that allows me to be a great person to put myself up for representation of this constituency as well as the Cayman Islands. I think I also wanted to be a part of the solution and not a part of the problem. I think we complain a lot about the problems that we see. However, this is a tough job, but someone has to do it. And I've not been very impressed with what's happened with our country in the last couple of administrations, and I just thought it was the right thing for me to do, to not complain about it, but to be a part of the solution. I do believe that women also are underrepresented in the government, and I believe that we need more qualified women with heart. We know how to lead, and we know how to be leaders, and this is just a perfect fit.
Thank you. The cost of health care is a major issue and is particularly acute for the elderly after they cease to be employed and are no longer able to continue their policy with their employer. What solutions would you propose to address this issue?
I definitely believe that as a society we do have to care for our vulnerable people, and I think that the elderly would be one of those people that would fall into that category, as well as young children. I remember growing up that the health care for elderly was free, as well as for young children that was going to school-age children. So I'm not sure exactly when that should, but I do believe that it's an area that we have to consider, because healthcare is very, very important, and if we're not able to afford it, then as a country, who takes responsibility for that? So I believe that there should be things in place preparing people before a retirement, so that they're able to not fall into this category. But if, in fact, this is the category that they've fallen into, then I think as a government we have to take responsibility, and we have to take care of our vulnerable people. And so I believe that the government, those are some areas that we will need to find ways to fund these particular things, especially health care for our elderly. We have to find ways in order for us to fund that.
What do you see as the largest issue facing your district? And if elected, what would you do to address it?
There are a lot of issues that I've just been privy to just with my visits recently. The Georgetown South constituency is actually quite interesting because it encompasses a couple of different areas, one of those areas being Windsor Park, part of Windsor Park, as well as Walker's Road and South Sound and South Church Street. So to choose one particular issue facing it, could be a little difficult. So I think the one thread that seems to be very common is that Cayman people are being left behind, that their needs are not being looked at, or that their ability to continue to do business or thrive in their own country is an issue. And that's from the one side where it's an affluent, the affluent neighborhoods that might have businesses or may have, just different resources. They feel the same way. They feel that in terms of running a business, it's become very difficult to maintain that business because of bureaucracy, lack of concessions that might be given to other people that are not necessarily Caymanians. So that's one issue. And then the other issue, not being able to have gainful employment, for instance, that might come from another area. So I think that the main words on the street right now is that we look out for Caymanians, that Caymanians need to thrive in their own country. And when I talk about Caymanians, I'm not talking about people that are just born here. I'm talking about people that have Caymanian status. They are Caymanians. And so we need to really put our people first. And for too long, we've not been first. And that's what I think is the main issue. That would be just an underlying thread. And I think that that's where we need to start, definitely.
With the development of locations in the Cayman Islands, such as Camana Bay, many feel that Georgetown has fallen by the wayside. What plans would you propose for the revitalization of the capital?
I'd have to disagree with Mr. Hurlston. I remember it being very, very vital as a young person growing up. I remember there were about 3 or 4 grocery stores in the middle of town, and there's lots of activities in the evening. And I remember going with my grandmother and the older women from the church after church and sitting in the middle with the post office and all the rest of it, and Comart and Byrite and Kirk Plaza and all that stuff going on there. And I remember it being a very exciting place to go. I remember, since forever, some of the landmarks, and I think that's an example of some of the older buildings, and they could be restored possibly. I think they've done a good job of repainting things and trying to make it look vital. I happen to go to Georgetown, a lot, and I look over the harbor and I see the natural beauty of the Cayman Islands, and I wonder to myself how it has happened that there's nothing going on. And I've been talking with the business owners in the Georgetown Central locations, and they're disheartened that there's no business going on there, and they want so much to work together. I think there are a couple of things that we could do. I think this, we're working, the stores are open 9 to 5, and everybody's working 9 to 5. So why not open the stores until 7 or until 8, so that people that work 9 to 5 would be able to go to the Kirk Reports or whatever and shop. And so that's one way. But also the businesses with the restaurants, they offer different things throughout the week, and they're interested in doing that more to bring people out. So I think that the alternative that we have to Cayman Bay, for instance, could be Georgetown, could be Central Georgetown, and that's where we can come out and enjoy ourselves, and even festivals, things of our own culture. So I think there's lots of opportunities for us to revitalize Georgetown, and I'm excited about bringing that back also, very much so.
Education is often raised as an issue that needs to be addressed. While everyone can agree that it's vitally important that we educate our children and have vocational opportunities, what specific initiatives would you support or create?
I think overall education is absolutely vital. I think that we have failed our children quite a bit. I think for one, before we can even talk about vocational or further education, we have to talk about literacy. Literacy is a major, major issue. And I think that I don't know how we're sleeping at night that children are graduating high school not knowing how to read. I have no idea how we can even feel comfortable with that, because it should be a right, not a privilege. And so if a child is not able to read or write, then how can we even talk about what type of career they can pursue, or what type of further education they can pursue? So that's first thing. Literacy, it should be on everybody's mind, and it should be, a national literacy program, free tutoring throughout all of the schools, so that we get our children up to that standard. I think another thing that I see that has changed a little bit from when I was, in school, and many of us, we talked about what we were going to be when we grow up. And we knew about different types of professions and careers. And you don't see that as much these days. So I think that we could do a better job of integrating the different types of careers and professions, and introduce that to our young people, to our students from a young age, so that they know the next step is, graduation. The next step is to either, get gainful employment or further education, whether that's vocational or, academic in terms of tertiary. So I think that we definitely need to start from an early age, integrating in their minds, this is what's next. And I think that we definitely we've not done a good job, and we've spent a lot of money on, definitely on schools, on buildings, and we should spend more money on, learning. So that's where I'd start right away.